Hello, my name is Sense, and I just got out from seeing Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, or I'm not sure if that subtitle is really part of it, but I just got finished seeing that in theaters like less than an hour ago, and I'm ready to jump right into this review. I'm honestly kind of going back and forth between giving it a 2 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5. You know, it wasn't a bad experience specifically. There's not something too heinous about it or anything. Maybe I shouldn't just go down and give it a 2 for no reason. But at the same time, I just finished reviewing Space Jam 2, and I honestly would consider that one more of a fun time in theaters than this one was. So maybe, I don't know, it'll probably still end up being a 3, but let's just get into it a little bit. You could tell just from the opening thing, from before the movie began, we had the lead actor, I think Henry Golding, talking about, thanking us for seeing in theaters and all of that. And then he ran through, talking about the things that they put a lot of effort into. And he, finished with like, yeah, the fights, especially the fights. And I was like, yeah, I have to agree. I feel like that's where a lot of the effort went into. And not saying the fights were actually that insane either, but I don't know. And honestly, I came out of it kind of wanting to go back and watch the last two G.I. Joe movies, which I didn't consider them that great to begin with. But the fact that I'm actually looking back at those a little nostalgically after watching this one kind of makes me feel like that's kind of saying something. But all right, let's just kind of break it down a little bit. Our main character, Snake Eyes, who doesn't have any other kind of name, which I actually did like that aspect of it, that he didn't have another name to him. But he's kind of a, they definitely got a lot of scenes where people were emoting. The real issue I was having was that while their faces in these scenes, they're giving it so much, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great stuff. I mean, it's a little over the top, but it's good stuff. But then you kind of realize, but wait, they're doing all of this for this reason or for that reason, and the reason's always for like, oh wait, really? Why are we going all the way to 11 for that? It's like stubbing your toe and screaming and kicking something. It's like, whoa, why are we going so extreme over things like this and things that should be? Anyway, let me just break it down a little bit more. I'm not going to be hiding from any spoilers. You're just going to hear whatever my thoughts are. Just going to go straight for it. His dad was killed, not directly in front of him, even though they said that, but he was within the area. He heard gunshot and everything. And then, they set up this bad guy as if for him to be the enemy that Snake Eyes needs to defeat. To get vengeance and revenge. It's, the classic story. Young kid's parent is killed in front of them. They grow up to be this twisted assassin. Well, it's assassin, but they grow up to basically want revenge. And obviously in these kind of stories, either A, they get their revenge, the movie just ends. They got their revenge, that's it. You're watching a revenge story, what did you think? B, they get their revenge, realize it didn't really mean anything, doesn't change anything. They still lost their parent at a young age. They still went through a childhood without parent. Like nothing really changed by killing the person who took their parent from them. And therefore, the story transitions into something a little bit different, whatever the writer wants to say with that. Or B, they don't get their revenge and give up on it, which C, I guess, which is what happens here, which is that he decides not to kill the guy because the guy works for Cobra. So, wow, Cobra's evil. I'm going off to Cobra now. Let me join G.I. Joe. It just was like, not saying I'm, a huge fan of the let's get revenge story, but at the same time, he just kind of gives it up after hearing the guys from Cobra. If there had been some kind of, typically they kind of will twist it by showing that, oh, now I'm going to be in the same position that guy was in at the beginning, and he was killing, and I'm going to kill. Either show the bad guy had a kid or something, and then, that's what changes our main character's mind. Here, it's like, yeah, I don't like killing, but I am going to kill this one guy. It's even in my heart, too. But as soon as the guy says, yeah, I'm Cobra, and he's like, Cobra's behind all this, huh? All right, I'm off to go save that. I was like, what? Yeah, I don't know. It kind of lost me there. It may have been just me not being as in tune with the movie as I should have been. But I was like, you going to kill him or you're not going to kill him? What's going to happen here, man? You're just kind of there and then you run away and, just moves on. Anyway, that's what was such an issue in the beginning part was it's all about him trying to get revenge, even though we've just time jumped, like, I assume 10 to 15 years from the beginning. But all this time, he's just been wandering around fighting and getting better at fighting, or just getting hardier at it at least, in order to track down the killer. But he doesn't seem to be doing anything specifically to track down this killer other than looking at articles. And then he gets recruited into the Yakuza, and you're like, whoa. He gets recruited in order to find his dad's killer, but he 100% did not want to join this guy. But he's like, we can help you find a killer. And he's like, okay. And then now he's gutting fish. It's like, there's a certain amount of details that they leave for you to pick up on later, which I mean definitely had me a little bit interested, because I was like, okay, is this a bigger Sting? Was the whole thing a Sting set up to begin with, and he was actually working with the Joes from the very beginning, and that's why he's even dealing with this Yakuza at all? Or what? You know, it definitely felt like something was behind it, and it kind of revealed there was more behind it, but it was still kind of like, but why is he going through all this? And then we got Storm Shadow, who was obviously Storm Shadow from his second appearance, like, it's, you know, after the whole scene. He saves his life, and now he's like, you're gonna be my brother, you're gonna help me lead the clan into this new age. And he basically makes up this fantasy best friend brother out of Snake Eyes, who doesn't show any sign of this other than, yeah, I helped you fight off a bunch of dudes, which I already fighting 50 guys in a warehouse. Why? And they're just doing the classic thing of a group of bad guys taking turns fighting. And then some of them have guns, but guess who doesn't? There's like, what, 6 gunshots in the entire movie? Why are people busting that? Not really. I mean, once you get to the final ending and the good guys start shooting, yes, you get a tons of bullets going everywhere. But when there's no good guys shooting, good guys don't have guns, bad guys are just forgetting to shoot left and right. Like, it's just crazy. Obviously, once we get to the very end, yes, there's scenes on the highway and scenes on the... There's several scenes where there's a lot of gunshots going on, but I just mean in situations, especially in the first half, where good guys come running into a room, bad guys are like, yeah, pulling out guns, pulling out hand, whatever, and they just barely use them. They've never really used them. And that's another thing, I guess, where this movie is just like Wolverine. I saw the Wolverine in theaters, but it had that same issue of, it was so clearly a movie that was designed to be more R-rated in terms of violence, and they had to keep toning it down to be almost just plain PG level instead of even PG-13. So you have scenes where people are like slicing heads, chopping, doing whatever, but they don't really show it, and people just kind of fall back, and it's like, oh, I got cut, ooh, I fall back, but it's like no blood, there's no body parts or anything, none of that nonsense going on. But at the same time, everybody's brandishing weapons like crazy, everybody's shooting guns whenever they, the scene calls for it. Most of the time it doesn't. Or they're whipping out swords every 2 seconds, just crowds of guys with swords. They all just charging in, and you're like, wouldn't they be hurting each other? Wouldn't they be hurting someone? That's the other thing. Nobody was getting hurt. Like, we can get the fact that, the bad guys, yeah, we just get sliced, throw a Wilhelm scream, they fall off screen, just move on with our life. We get that. But our main characters, even Snake Eyes, aside from one in the very first scene where they're fighting, and then later on when he gets he gets stabbed, kind of. I mean, at first I was like, is it arm? Is it side? What's going on? And then after that, it's like everybody's just like, everybody has plot armor like crazy. Every named character just has some crazy plot armor. It's just kind of strange, It's like, not saying they don't get punched, they don't get hit, they don't get thrown around, but there's no lasting damage to anybody. They're just like, here's a slice, here's a whatever. A whole bunch of people rush forward with swords. Our main character's just like, yep, swash, woo, just did some big arm moves and we're good. We're out of here. No one even cut my clothes the least bit. Woo. Flare out my Storm Shadow coat and I'm out of here. Like, it was just some nonsense. And then especially towards the end, you are really getting into, we obviously have to set up these character dynamics for how they are when you get to typical stories with the G.I. Joe. I guess they may have been trying to lead up into the movies. I can't remember the older movies that clearly. I think so. But they were so clearly trying to move characters into these positions. So they were just like, we're working together. Oh, we're enemies. Oh, we don't like each other. Oh, yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, there's scenes where Storm Shadow is like screaming. He's enraged. You're like, oh, wow. Something's really about to go down. And then 2 seconds later, they're like, okay, the scene now calls for them to be pals. Like, all right, we'll temporarily do this, but next time I see you, you'll be dead. All right, we're back to back, cool brothers in arms. We finish this fight, we finish that fight, we do this. All right, but now I hate you again. And it's just like that back and forth. You have Scarlet in this movie, both Scarlet and Baroness, I don't know what they were doing with them. I think they told the actress to ham it up a little bit too much. Scarlet was too much of a GI Joe toy almost. It's just too, yeah, I just did this, and then you got Baroness, who's just dripping with evil for no good reason. Anyway, but they're just like teaming up. It's like this terrorist. You can get out without the terrorist. You know what? I mean, it just seems like that, where it's just like, why is everybody lined up on the scene? You had Storm Shadow, you had Snake Eyes, you had Baroness, and you had Scarlet, and then a bunch of, the other ninjas all lined up together, like, yeah, we're a group now. It's like, no, you're not. There's no reason why you guys should be lining up together at all. Anyway, it may sound like I'm leaping from point to point that frustrated me. I will say, to finish off all these frustration stuff, I will say I actually liked the closing credits more than I liked most of the movie. And that wasn't even that it was that great. It just had some more style, some more flair to it than most of the movie did. There was definitely some scenes that had some good, flair to them in the movie. Obviously them fighting in the rain in front of the neon lights and stuff, but again, those feel almost like trailer shots. Like, we set this up and had this whole scene just so we could have a cool stuff for the trailer, unless that it was that important within story. I mean, just characters were established pretty quick by exposition. Everybody was exposition dumping as soon as they could, just like just vomiting out, here's what's going on. There's very little show. There was so much tell going on in this movie, and it was like, we quickly tell you a bunch of stuff so we can get to the next fight, which they always just had so many people in these fights. It's like, here's like 40 people running up here. It's like, you may have some good, choreography going for some of our main characters and stuff, but there's so much. Most of the time you can't even see half of it, and even if they are actually doing it, it's just like, you're like, there's too many people. They should get some damage in, or they can't just be all being defeated this easily like they're nothing. The ninjas from the group, be it, like, aside from the named ones, everybody else may as well been some bumbling janitors they picked up off the street. None of them seemed to be able to do anything. Everybody was just running around swinging swords like, yeah, I'm cool, and then doing absolutely nothing. Okay, I'm trying not to go around bashing the whole movie. I did like the general idea of setting up Snake Eyes to be a lot more ambiguous, as he's not really as directly a good guy as he may seem. I mean, obviously he's really doing this as a revenge story, but kind of pitting him, and that's, I did like that, that situation he's put in, right? Because it really felt like no good guys in this situation. You're dealing with Storm Shadow, crazy ninja, whatever, on one end, where even if he hasn't done anything terrible yet, he's about to. And then on the other hand, you got his brother, who obviously Yakuza nonsense. And then you just know that Yakuza, whatever. You just know that Snake Eyes is just kind of caught in an area that's just not all. Anyway, just that framework, that idea, I actually would really like that in the story. Maybe it had to be told separated from G.I. Joe and all this other thing, so they don't feel like they're forced to take characters in different directions. But there's definitely a kernel of a good idea there. And like I said, I do think that a lot of actors did actually put in a lot of effort. Even if the story in there, it's like, you just got Superman this scene, but now you don't care. In the next scene, now you're super sad. In the next scene, now you don't care. Now you're super angry. Now you don't care. It's just like that back and forth. We need you to not care half the time so these other events can happen. Okay, but now we need to get back to you, so get angry. Oh, but next thing, we want you to work with that person who you hate, so we'll just shuffle that around. Like, why in the world in the very end are we seeing Storm Shadow work with Cobra? It's just, yeah. Who even is the guy who killed Snake Eyes? He's like, he just lets him go because he's Cobra for some reason, and then was that guy even a character? It's to quote Street Fighter, for you it was the day I took everything from you, but for me it was just a Tuesday. I'm not quoting it exactly, but basically he treated it like that. Snake Eyes like, well, I'm setting you free. Come on, why did you set him free? At least leave him chained up for the police or something. This is a guy with a terrorist cell. You can't. And why is Storm Shadow, who's sitting there like, yes, this is our terrorist. The next scene, he's like, well, I'm no longer going to be the leader, so I'm no longer going to be a part of that clan. Let me join the terrorists. Like, what kind of crazy shenanigans? They just needed him to work with Cobra because he typically aligns with them half the time. So they're like, he's now working with Cobra. But it's like, from what you just set up, there's no reason he would be working. Anyway, let's move on. Oh, and he didn't even put on the Snake Eyes costume to the very end. And he was just nothing like the Snake Eyes I remembered from the shows and other stuff that I enjoyed. Honestly, I'm going to have to knock it down to a 2 out of 5. It's not a 1 out of 5 because 1 out of 5 means I don't have a 0 out of 5 on my scale. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 means I'm absolutely not watching it again. It's not that heinous of a movie. It's like, if the nephews are around or something, they're like, hey, let's watch this movie because we love G.I. Joe. It can be on in the background. I'm not going to be mad about it. Probably be on my phone, but I'm not going to be mad about it. That's my review of Snake Eyes. Hopefully next week's movie will be more exciting and I'll have a better review that's not just ranting about it. It's a sense. Have a great day.